We've all fucked up. In one way or another, some more than others, but the point is, we've all done something we shouldn't have and possibly regret. But what if that one thing landed you in prison? What if that one thing made you part of a larger industrial complex system not designed to rehabilitate or restore you, but simply to punish you? Imagine having to wake up in an extremely lonely place where every moment of every day is dictated for you and where there's tremendous opportunities for self-reflection. In the movies, on TV, and through media coverage, you see individuals get swept into the justice system, and there's this emphasis on the crime, the trial, entry into prison. Then there's a few portrayed scenes of prison. Walk in the yard with the tough guys, pumping iron, watching back in the shower room. And lastly, this great experience of being released from prison. Back to spending time with family and friends, barbecues in the summertime, and so on and so forth. It's all very event-oriented, without the day-to-day experiences put on display. In part, that's because you can't show the day-to-day loneliness, the feelings of exclusion, the feelings of shame and cowardice that accompany individuals' incarceration, the realization that they've not only victimized their victim through whatever offense committed, but they've additionally victimized their family, their friends, their loved ones, their communities, and the list goes on and on. So what I hope to get across here, for starters, prisoners are human beings, individuals who have failed society for whatever reasons, and though no excuse relieves them from their poor life decisions, without hope and help to be better people, without redemption, society is all but lost in its entirety through their bad behaviors. With millions of men and women behind bars, it is important to keep in mind that nearly all of them will at some point be released. As I stand here today, my brother sits in a prison cell, and 12 years from now, he will be one of 93% of inmates who return to society and walk amongst us. Thanks to him, I became interested in mass incarceration, a certified prison yoga teacher and advocate for prison reform. This semester, I embarked on a great unknown adventure as part of a project for my peace building and conflict resolution class. I decided to write letters to inmates across the nation. I mailed 100 letters to prisoners who had committed everything from murder, homicide, robbery, promotion of prostitution, and nonviolent drug offenses, just to name a few. I wasn't expecting much, which is why I mailed 100 letters. But to my surprise, 2 weeks after mailing them, I had 51 letters waiting for me in my P.O. box. As of today, I have 76 friends behind bars in 23 states, serving sentences from 5 years to life and death row. The responses I have received have inspired and moved me beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And today I'm here to tell you a little bit about my experience through these letters and why you should pick up a pen and write a prisoner today. Currently, the U.S. makes up 5% of the world's population, but houses 25% of world's prisoners. We have 2.2 million men and women behind bars, which means if we had an entire city designated to them, it'd be the fourth largest city following New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Study after study have consistently found that prisoners who maintain close contact with family and friends have lower recidivism rates and better post-release outcomes. Recidivism is repeated relapse, or the rate at which criminals reoffend. It's one of the most fundamental concepts of criminal justice. But as it stands, our current system hasn't done a really good job at lowering these numbers, with 6 out of 10 inmates returning to prisons within 3 years of release. The status quo in the U.S. for years has been the steady return of felons after 2 to 5 year terms who pose the same risk they did as when they were arrested. We've done too little to fix a system in which we deem it normal that prisoners return to society at least as dysfunctional as when they went in. These studies have proven that it is abundantly clear that prisoners need to maintain contact with family and friends. Yet, despite this clear correlation, prison officials often do little to encourage contact between prisoners and their family members. There are 3 primary forms of communication available to prisoners: visits, phone calls, and letters. However, Visitations can sometimes be an unpleasant process, including lengthy waits, heavy searches, restricted visitation times, and rigid enforcement of often petty rules. For example, the first time my mom, my sister, and I went to visit my brother in prison, we were told we could not enter because the underwire in their bras would set off the metal detector. I was wearing a sports bra and thought I lucked out until they pointed to the small metal circles on the straps. After leaving, removing our bras, and returning, we were told we could not enter because we weren't wearing a bra. Luckily for us, my brother's house had a facility less than an hour from our house, but this isn't the case for everybody. We met a woman in line who flew from Chicago to visit her son for the first time, had the same issue and was forced to drive to the nearest Walmart to purchase a sports bra. Due to such problematic issues with visitation, phone calls are a primary means of maintaining communication. But phone calls can add up, and if you take the call, expect multiple interruptions reminding you that your call is being recorded and monitored for security purposes during a brief 15-minute call. If you happen to miss the call, don't expect the call back or the luxury of being able to return the call, which will end with you beating yourself up for the rest of the day. Those inmates that are seeking to maintain and restore healthy relationships with their family and friends are often faced with the challenges of communicating behind bars. The simple convenience of calling friends and family is no longer an easy choice, but a privilege that the prison system controls. Therefore, writing letters is a valuable communication process for inmates. Letter writing was nothing new to me. I often write to my brother, who always expresses gratitude for taking the time to write to him. I never understood why he seemed so thankful for something I consider so simple. After all, he is my brother and it's the least I can do. But quickly after receiving these letters, I began noticing something. Most of these prisoners weren't as lucky as my brother. They didn't have family and friends to write to, much less receive letters from. These letters have inspired me in so many ways. And I know a lot of people believe that there should be no compassion for prisoners. But in reality, most of our inmates serving time are serving time for nonviolent drug offenses. Most of these inmates aren't violent as we're made to believe. And I truly believe that prison reform should not be left to politicians and law enforcement. We can all be involved in this process through simple things like writing letters. Through these letters, there is no set formula for what to write. When I mailed out these letters, all I told them was a little bit about myself. I'm a student, I study communication, and I love yoga. I also included some chat pack questions. Things like, what is your favorite movie? What do you believe is the greatest truth of all? And what is the greatest change or biggest change of opinion you've ever had? I also included some fun facts. I thought, what would I want to hear if I was sitting in a prison cell? And I love random facts. In turn, they've shared their stories, conveyed inner workings of the prison system, cracked jokes, given me more facts, shared their creative writing and art, shared their hopes and aspirations for the future. But most importantly, all of these men have shown raw, vulnerable emotions. And when I look at these letters, they often express gratitude. I haven't had one letter where an inmate doesn't start by taking the time to thank me for writing them. And I think about these letters, and I think about how we need to be treating these inmates with the same kindness and respect as we want them to treat members of society when they return. So how can you change the life of an inmate today? One such group trying to involve the public in prison reform and bring some hope to this depressing situation is Write a Prisoner. This is the website I decided to use as I found it easy to navigate, and it provided personal information, background check, and prison addresses. It's where I found 76 men who are eager and ready to start an ongoing friendship through pen paling. It's where I found Joshua from Texas, who just sent me a newspaper clipping about prison yoga, expressing his interest for a program like that at his facility. It's where I found Roshan from Louisiana, who just sent me a letter with his mission statement and goals for the nonprofit he plans to start upon release for at-risk youth. It's where I found that little reminder that we all desire for the same things: acceptance, friendship, freedom, love, and happiness. These inmates have all shared a part of themselves with me that I never expected. When I first opened my P.O. box and had 51 letters waiting for me, I immediately broke down. I knew this was no longer a class project, but something greater. And I thought about, how can this be a new way of doing justice? How can we create a person-based, connection-based justice system? Right to Prisoner is not the only website out there to contact prisoners. There's also Friends Beyond the Wall, Black and Pink, Meet an Inmate, and Prison Pen Pals. I do want to offer a disclaimer that some prisoners and people of the public treat sites like these as dating websites. I actually had an inmate address a letter to Tanya, aka Miss Allen, which happened to be his last name. The act of pen paling mirrors the mindset shift that will be necessary to rethink how our society does justice on a much larger scale. My conversations, correspondences, and relationships with prisoners have taught me that separation breeds more separation, and that the coldness and isolation of prison breed the coldness and isolation of violence. And I think about how that one-on-one relationship in which the individual labeled a prisoner emerges as the individual they are, with the history, thoughts, hopes, dreams, and nightmares, might serve as a new model. And I know it's hard to imagine many criminals from America's favorite gangster movies spending their prison time writing letters to a person like you or a person like me. But outside of Hollywood, many prisoners are ready and eager for human connection, whatever its source. Perhaps, instead of totally rejecting our prison population, we should have a little bit more compassion for them. Perhaps, instead of treating them as worthless outsiders, we should be doing more to change their hearts and help them reintegrate into society. In the end, the truth is, none of us are perfect. Perhaps we should remember that. This is one person, one stamp, one gesture. Thank you.